Jim Louderback from VidCon. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Great group of people. We're going to talk a little bit about just trends in next year, 2022. So I'd like to have each of these lovely folks introduce themselves, starting with Ricky.
Ricky Ray Butler, CEO. Oh, thank you. CEO of Ben Group.
All right. Hold on to that mic until I do it. Go ahead.
Rahul Krishnan, based out of Singapore, looking after content partnerships for Twitter and APAC. Nice to be here.
Woo. Katy, Leeson, Managing Director of Social Pay.
Dom Smales, founder of Vtubers and now working on new things in the subscriber creator economy.
So an amazing group of people that have done so much in the creator economy, working for a wide variety of companies around the world. We've got folks from UK and Europe, we've got folks from California and Utah, we've got folks from Singapore and Asia. So really have a very global look at what's going on here. So let's start off. I'm really interested about the transition to Web3. And what I'm really interested in knowing, and I just would like you guys to debate it actually, is Web3 going to be a big thing in 2022, or is it going to crash harder than rocks falling down off the mountains at a volcano anywhere, La Palma or wherever it's going off right now, in Malaysia, Indonesia? Who wants to start?
To the room.
I think we're so early on in the journey that it's in our ecosphere of knowing, working in this industry, we're all very excited about it, but getting people to catch up to it is the thing. We've seen some brands really start stepping into the metaverse now, with Adidas announcing their launch into the metaverse this week. And I think for creators it's incredibly exciting in terms of the introduction of AI influencers. So where we've got the ones that are based out in LA but they're not actually real, and they're actually working with loads of fashion brands to gather authenticity there, which is an exciting space.
Do you think they have a lot of loyal engagement?
By the looks of it, I mean, we've got Michaela out of LA that's actually flying, and millions of followers there. For me, the space is really exciting from a brand perspective. We're looking at who can collaborate with them because they've got that sort of brand safety around them with them not being real people.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things that'd be fun to really investigate and research, because there are so many creators that have fake engagement, and it'd be interesting to see the actual creators that are virtual creators, to see where that really comes from, and see if there's anything that's gaming the system. I think there's some that are sticking where it's sticking and it's working, but I wonder, because there's a good handful of them now. I just wonder, when I look at the content, how much loyalty is really there, and so it's exciting to see.
It is a funny thing to think about. I come from a pure talent background in developing real people for brands and projects and engagement, etc. on social media platforms. And I'm worried about the fake creator as well as almost as much as the fake audience epidemic that we're seeing coming through. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. One thing I am certain of, to answer your question, Jim, is that this industry is always going to progress. There's always a progression, and it changes, and new things happen. We're definitely not going back to Web 1.0, so I think Web 3.0 is probably absolutely inevitable.
Yeah, I concur. I think 2022 was just a huge output of creativity. I mean, from just the vantage point of working at Twitter and all the conversation that's happening there on just crypto Twitter, but NFTs, and how brands and even the kind of traditional media broadcasters are leaning into that. I think despite all the volatility we're seeing right now, it's definitely going to be just an incredible set of outputs.
I'm very excited about Web3. A variety of reasons. Blockchain I'm very bullish on, because it really is a way to protect creators' IP, where they always can monetize off of it. They're truly protected. It's their own. Also very excited with breakthroughs with automation and AI. I think we're going to see a lot of breakthroughs this coming year that are just going to be game-changing for both creators and for brands. I mean, that's one of the reasons why our company acquired TubeBuddy, which has over 8 million creators that we're helping be data-driven and growing their audiences and their revenue, is we're realizing there's just so much opportunity to really look at data differently and figure out how to truly see breakthroughs, to take out a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the tedious work so people can scale their content creation. But where get really excited about blockchain and Web3 is hopefully soon we can start fractioning NFTs. And I don't think it's going to be soon. The SEC is a really slow-moving organization, and who knows how long it's going to take to approve doing crowdfunding with NFTs. But imagine a day when over 1 million people could own a Picasso painting.
Or sports team.
Or launch a series. You know, we did a crowdfund series this last year that I have ownership in, where it made over 100 million in just 2 years, and we did that through an SEC fundraise. Imagine if we could do that with blockchain. It'd be game changing.
I think a really exciting thing for NFTs is for next year is the merging of the digital and physical world, especially for creators, where they can start to bring people on that NFT journey while we're still learning about it and how to do it, and being able to give parts of the physical world away as in exchange for NFTs. We've seen Clinique do it really well as a brand. They gave away 10-year worth of product through an NFT competition. One, that means that people are going after the competition because they want 10 years of the product, but two, they're also holding the hands of the people through the NFT process. And for creators, I think it's a really exciting space in terms of whether they could offer meet and greets or merchandise or different levels of experiences that you wouldn't get through normal channels through NFTs.
Dom, anything on NFTs before we move on?
I mean, for me it's a no-brainer that digital art and experiences and things like that would become more premium and people can actually own parts of them tangibly. Because I think the problem that the entire space has got at the moment is that there is too much mediocrity and fakery going on that has completely devalued the space. If you compare 2014 to 2021, it's a completely different landscape. And I think the challenge for us all as an industry will be to find premium experiences and engagement and talent to make sure that it's all sustainable. This whole industry is sustainable, otherwise it won't mean anything. And I think that NFTs play a really important part of that. And I think it's key that there's physical experience as well, because understanding what they are is a massive barrier. How many people will instantly reel off exactly what an NFT is? That's going to be a consumer of NFTs. I don't think it's that many, but they do understand about meet and greets and physical bits and bobs.
Rahul, anything on NFTs before I move on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I just want to echo, just in terms of that ownership, not just fractional, but just allowing a creator to really be the authentic source of that innovation. So, for example, last year there was a very public, or famous case about this 14-year-old black teenager, July Harmon, who created this dance called Renegade. And it was only a few weeks after it had gone viral on TikTok and YouTube by other influencers that the original ownership traced back to her. She was the one who actually invented it. And it was only through articles in the New York Times and the NBA that brought her to the All-Star game and this and that. But it was just because of this public outpouring that she was actually recognized. But there are hundreds and hundreds of cases like that that go unnoticed. And I feel like with NFTs, the creators can actually demonstrate and authenticate their own ownership of that. And I think that's really key development.
Cool. All right, I want to lean into something, Katy, that you brought up real quickly. Lightning round on this one. You brought up Michaela, which I assume you mean Lil Michaela, a virtual creator, a synthetic creator, a non-human creator, works 24 hours a day, doesn't take a salary, and builds an audience around herself or himself or itself, depending on what it is. Real quickly, and Dom, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go all the way down the list, you guys the list, you four, and we're going to say, virtual creators in 2022, yes or no? And if yes, who will be the biggest virtual creator in 2022? Dom!
I'm going to say no, being a talent person, although the appeal of the virtual creator as a talent manager is obvious.
Well, they're growing, so they've increased. I think there's about 160 now in the last 2 years, so post-COVID world is definitely going to increase. But who knows? Who knows?
I'm going to say no, too short a time frame.
I think they have to be true AI creators in order to be really successful. And there's no feedback loop. It's just images being developed by a group of people. I'm not seeing a lot of engagement there, but that'd be a fun area just to validate and stress test it.
Yeah, and by the way, I agree with you. It's like they need to be AI-based, not puppets, because they're basically, non-player character puppets that are being controlled by the person behind the screen. We're going to move on to the next one, and Ricky, I'm going to start with you and go the other way. We're going to talk about Vtubers, and the reason why I bring this up is if you're familiar with Code Nico and the Technician, wears a mocap suit, and there is the mocap suit creates a virtual tour that streams on, well, it's on Twitch and other places, but she is actually starting a company called the Micoverse, where she's going to take all the stuff she put together, like the suit and the computer and the stuff together and all of that, and make an actual product you can sell, so that it'll be easier for VTubers to grow up and create this new thing that they do. I like it because, you know, there's a lot of body shaming, a lot of people just don't want their face or their body on these social platforms, and this allows you to do and be whatever you want. And actually, I want to go on YouTube as a dog, so I am ready to do that. What do you think about VTubers in 2022? Ricky Ray, take it away.
You know what? I think they're going to continue to progress, and I mean, kind of like animation creators, right? There's a lot of animators that are doing really well, and I've seen lots of records broken as a result of it. And so I think that's something that's going to continue to progress. And we mentioned that they're going to create their own little ecosystem, you know, to have their content, etc. I think that's going to be, you know, the future is, you know, we talk about a centralized metaverse. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think creators are going to become much more successful, and they crack the code of owning their audience and owning their own data.
I agree with that. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting development there, just in terms of just across the world, like whether it's in Japan, for example, just how people use multiple Twitter accounts so they can be who they want and say what they want without their real identity being exposed. I think that's going to explode in terms of that kind of creativity. So yeah, I'm bullish on that.
Katie?
Definitely, we're seeing it in user behavior on things like Roblox, where you can just create what you want to look like. So for me, I think it's incredibly exciting space to be in, and to see how that develops from a watcher and observer's perspective.
Tom?
So I have just learned about VTubers from you just now, and I think it sounds like a huge amount of fun, and definitely the way I think it should go and can go as an alternative. And I totally agree with the whole, this is about building proper big premium audiences and talent owning their own data and owning their audiences and monetizing and premiumizing that. Is it as a cartoon? Fine, as long as it's a real person behind it.
Yeah, I like that. Or an AI, if we can have some AI that actually is, you know, doing it on its own. Oh, Kiki. What was it? There was one of them that I had a conversation with this girl, I can't remember her name. I will though. I asked each of the four panelists on the fifth one, each of the four panelists to come up with their 5 trends in 2022 that they think is going to happen. What we're going to do now is we're going to lightning round through each one. I want each of you on the seats they're all sitting and I'm standing, on the seats to list your top one, the one you think is most interesting, and then we're going to debate it a little bit, and we're just going to spend a couple minutes doing that. Who would like to start with their first prediction for 2022? Raise your hand. Nobody can see the raised hand, so Dom, go.
So my number one prediction is that I think subscription, social media, and creators that lean into subscription as their primary source of income and career will become much more important in 2022.
All right. Wait, okay. Who agrees or disagrees? Ricky is like, I'm going to agree, and you took the mic away from me.
Can I just clarify? I'm talking about
I'm being censored here.
I'm talking about censorship. I'm talking about OnlyFans, Patreon, and Twitch. Primarily, there's loads more platforms coming up that straight.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about that is that what you're saying is their primary source. Just for a minute, Ricky, primary source, not a source. Primary source of revenue is the prediction.
So you think it's going to be the primary source?
That's what he said.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was listening to you too, I promise. No, I think it's going to continue to grow. I think there's going to have to be ways of innovating and making it so there's more of, I guess, encouragement or incentives to subscribe. But you know, I mentioned, you know, that we launched our own little platform for a creator this last year. And it was a good way to build and empower the creator to make more content and have much bigger budgets than they ever had before. I think it's going to keep happening, but I think it's going to, this type of like subscription, I think it's going to become much more decentralized as well. I think creators are going to be able to have their own platforms and their own services to do this.
Yeah, I think blockchain is going to absolutely enable that, and you know, we at Twitter have been pushing that, especially on the thought leadership side for creators. With their audio, ticketed spaces, with subscription long form. Substack obviously does a great job of it. So yeah, I think we're going to see increase. Primary source, that soon probably not, but definitely a lot of growth.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit early for primary source, but I do think that there's a massive opportunity for data collection for influencers and talent in that sort of space with the subscriber model as well.
I'm waiting for Jim's subscription to start.
But you know, on my first session, I had Jim coin, now it's Jim sub, so I'm ready for it too. All right, who's got the next one they want to go with? Okay.
I think live streaming and live shopping is going to explode in 2022. It's already starting to explode, but 2022 in China is expected to be 400 billion next year. I know of one creator named Xinba who's like nicknamed the king of live streaming in China. In 12 hours, guess how much revenue he was able to generate just from his live stream? 12 hours.
$2 million.
$305 million in 12 hours. So we were freaking out like a year and a half ago about Jeffree Star, Shane Dawson launching a makeup company and getting 100 million in 24 hours. This shit is real. It's gonna keep boiling, it's gonna keep growing, and right now we see a lot of live streaming with gamers, and there's other categories that are growing, but I think we're gonna figure out which platform is going to crack the mainstream with live shopping and live streaming.
Which one will do it outside of China? Or just in general?
I have no freaking clue. because everyone's doing it, there's not one clear winner. I think TikTok should have the most data to have an advantage in this area because Douyin, it's one of the largest areas of revenue. It's one of the bigger areas of generating revenue for KOLs or influencers. Douyin, the counterpart to TikTok in China. So they should have an advantage, but it'll be interesting to see between Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, which one's going to win.
All right, so Arul, you're our Asian representative on this, and so you're closest to the problem or solution. What do you think?
Live shopping was actually one of my top trend hubs, so.
Well, so why don't you dig into why you think it's that?
It's massive. I mean, so yes, obviously, I mean, with brands like Shein have kind of really led the charge of that. But yeah, I mean, big companies like Lazada and Shopee, which are owned by Alibaba and Green, SEA respectively, are doing that in space, especially with all the 8, 9, 10, 11, big shopping days and doing billions in gross market value. Twitter started dabbling in. We did it with Jason Derulo and Walmart just last week. To Ricky's point, yes, I mean, Instagram and TikTok, I think, are probably leading the charge of that so far. So I'm huge on, I think live shopping is really going to explode. I think that if I could just add an additional trend to that, would be you're going to see brands increasingly leaning to not just direct to consumer, but direct to avatar. In terms of kitting out your virtual, in case Jim's dog wants to be wearing the latest Air Force Ones, whatever. That's going to be a key trend.
I have 2 dogs, I'm making them famous next year. That's my prediction. Katy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting space in terms of shoppable lives. TikTok are obviously pushing it quite heavily, and they're exposing smaller creators to that as well. Just last week they announced that they are reducing in terms of creator management from 100,000 followers down to 10, and they can now get involved in shoppable lives with brands. And in this pandemic world that we're living, we've become so expectant of being able to see something on social and buy it straight away. So making sure that loop is really tight in terms of how we purchase is going to be really interesting next year.
Tom, thoughts on live streaming?
I love live streaming, and I think that live streaming platforms are only going to grow. And I think the whole live shopping experience has got a universe to expand into. And to add to all of those very valid points, I come from a media background where I used to sell ads and all kinds of old-fashioned media. But to see what happens when those big budgets start being directed at the live shopping space to reach new audiences and take it, it's going to be fascinating, I think.
Yeah. Anybody want to add anything else on this before we move on to the next topic? I took Ricky's mic away, so.
No, I'm good, thank you.
No, okay, so Katy or Rahul, who wants to pop up with the next one, your top one?
Okay.
Katy, go.
Mine's a little bit softer, but it's more behavioural. So we've seen a lot of digital innovation in the last 2 years, but I think personal innovation as well in terms of content creation and how content is created around the Great Resignation and the fact that we're all re-evaluating our purpose. And I think that's going to be a really interesting trend next year, helping creators and helping followers to really understand what their purpose is and what makes them happy in terms of content creation. For me, is going to be something really interesting to watch. So that pursuit of purpose.
Super.
I love what Jimmy and Mark Rober are doing with Team C's and how they're trying to raise $30 million to remove 30 million pounds of trash. And we were very lucky to be able to be part of the campaign where, in the first hour that it went live, we engaged all like the TubeBuddy creators as well as all of our creator friends at Ben, and we were able to help them get 5,000 videos live in the first hour. And now I think there's around 30,000 videos that are live, and I think we're getting closer and closer to get to that 30 million, which I think is going to make a huge impact on the environment. And I think it's a really good product. But I think this is going to continue to happen. And I think it's what's so beautiful about the industry that when there's so much content, which means there's so much data. And imagine we can start modeling charity initiatives. So charities can truly self-sustain, optimize without having to just raise funds, from traditional methods.
Yeah, I think a lot of creators are really taking the bull by the horns in this and forcing brands to really reassess, especially with kind of planned obsolescence and replacing their product every year and all this waste and everything. And I think a lot of brands are recognizing that they have to change that operating model and really emphasize reusing and recycling and just really lean into that consumer trend.
I think that creators without a purpose are going to get rarer and rarer, and I think that not only every brand and creator or personal brand should have a purpose in the future and will need a purpose as part of their basic hygiene, but also I think there's so many creators coming to us that don't know what they want and what's going to make them happy, and they've come to it thinking, I want to be an influencer, and that's where the plan has stopped. And I think that's going to be a thing in the past.
And when we move into the metaverse, it's even more important that you've got your IP, because if you're going into a space that you don't have the same rules and ways of working to get your traction, it's going to be really important to have something that you're known for so people can find you.
Absolutely, and we'll lean into the metaverse in a minute. I want to add to this one, by the way, one of the things that I think is big. It riffs on everything you guys were saying, but and I love Pursuit of Purpose. I think that's great. But when we were thinking about this, we're thinking about that from charitability to sustainability. And if you think about millennials, a lot of what we as organizations did over the last 10 years with creators and with our own orgs was to have a charitable purpose, to bring that out there, to do charity water, or to do various different things there. I think as Gen Z becomes more dominant in the culture and in the conversation, particularly next year we're going to see more about sustainability, which ties to what Mr. Beast and Mark Rober are doing around plastic in the ocean and things like that. I mean, you take a look at, the CMO Vivo with Katy, the vegan shoes and other things. Like, how do we become more sustainable? To me, is going to be the thing that we're all going to be talking about at the end of the year, and that's what I think creators and Gen Z will lead the way. Comments, thoughts?
Yeah, sustainability is really important, and the environment's really important. And as we look at the metaverse, as we look at blockchain, as we look at AI, there's one common thread: computing, energy, and it's really hurting the planet. And so, in our company, as we've invested millions and millions of dollars into building very best-in-class AI that has been a game changer in how you look at data and be able to make much stronger future predictions, whether it's conversions or views, we've realized that we need to address this. As we're seeing these breakthroughs, we have to figure out how do we do this in a sustainable, green way. And so we've made a really big focus on sustainable AI, where we can figure out how to create smaller algorithms that take less computing, but are actually faster and more effective and more accurate than a lot of the bigger algorithms that are being used by the much bigger platforms. And so we have a research team that's really just, they're like these mad scientists, and they're just trying to figure out how can we make our AI more efficient, because it's going to be very important as the TubeBuddy community becomes a lot more scaled and growing their audience to take out the guesswork, but also when brands are navigating this world of decentralized content where it's impossible for the human mind to compute the amount of content that is out there and how to prioritize it. We're realizing that everything's shifting in this direction. It's going to all be about content, and we need to figure out how do we make that content, stay relevant and continue to grow, but hurt the planet less.
Raul, do you have any emotion on this?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of the good ones were actually.
It's all right, that's what happens. We're all smart people, we all see the world.
But if I could just take a little bit of a tangent, I guess, I think one thing that's going to really crop up, and just something we've seen in our workforce and the partners that deal with the creators, I think is going to be a huge focus on mental health. And we're just going to really just see people be a lot more transparent and open about that, a lot more social acceptance of people acknowledging that they're going through issues and taking frequent breaks to address that. I think we're just going to see that just become much more acceptable in the mainstream. Especially, I feel like it's already happening in the U.S. Western markets where there's there's always been, increasing over the last 20 years, there's been acceptance of like, okay, I'm going to therapy, I'm going to address my needs. Out in my part of the world, it's still a lot of stigma around that issue, but I think that the charge is being led by Gen Z. I see it in my reports, I see it in all the young folks joining our companies and other ones, and I see it in the creator. Even yesterday, I was attending the Merrill Twins speech yesterday, and they were so open and honest about how they deal with fame. That, these two 25-year-old twins, millions of followers, and present this, from the outside they had this picture-perfect image, but they were very open about the struggles that they face. And I think that really resonated with the audience. That was the one that got the most reception and questions. So,
I think that it's going to be a really important thing at the moment, because one of the things that threatens the future of our whole industry is the amount of toxicity and negativity and hate that is spread on social media, and I think we've got to start taking real responsibility for that. The thing that ties to all the things that we've been talking about, data and premium content and premium audiences, is that on platforms that are subscription platforms, everybody that's engaging is either paying or is in there, and there's hundreds or thousands of fans rather than millions, and so all that negativity that affects talent like the Merrill Twins, because it's a completely open conversation. Anybody, in the way that people get road rage and a keyboard warrior rage, etc., can just say awful things, and that just doesn't happen in premium audience environments on subscription, because trolls don't want to pay to troll.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Okay. And Ricky got it.
Well, no, I think it's a really important era. I mentioned we're in the era of the artist, and one thing that's so important about art and creators, that create content, is that the history of our planet, it's been art that has preserved history, culture. It's also a data point that we learn from and a better future. Well, one thing that's beautiful about today is that there's so much diversification of art and so much self-expression. And so, as you mentioned earlier, people are now talking about this. And I believe it's going to be, one of those things that hopefully drive more empathy in the communities, and hopefully there's going to be a lot more innovation in how we address it and how we can help burnout, mental health, and all the toxicity that the internet has. And I think we're still getting used to this world, and we're also, understanding that, there's things that we can do to address this negativity, and I'm excited to see, how it progresses. And I think people coming out and being vulnerable is the first step.
I think it's our job as leaders as well within the industry to talk more openly about it. I mean, I've created a decent sized following on LinkedIn because I'm talking openly and honestly about my own journey and imposter syndrome and what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And let's be honest, it's not going to go anywhere. Social media is not going anywhere. 95% of the online population are using it. So it's about us to try and guide people to use it in the right way. And I think things like TikTok, TikTok is a prime example of the amazing things you can get out of social in our world if it's used in the right way, but it's about us shouting about it and helping people use it correctly as well.
I think audiences, though, as well, have got to be made accountable for the things that they do on social media. And although we're all excited about millions, if not billions, of numbers and data streams, and views and so on, I think that each of those streams should be accountable if they're saying and doing things that are negative for that community.
Creators should be given the power by the platforms to just put together a filter system. It would be very easy to have a matching system whenever anyone says anything toxic or negative, make it so they can't see your content ever again. It's going to be a blow. There's going to be some times where you make some mistakes as a creator, you're going to lose half your audience. But you know what? It could be something that just forces all of us to adjust to this environment that we're in.
Which is why subscribing now is really exciting, because I think we'll see quality content creators moving into that space from the knowledge that they're going to be protected.
Yeah, do you want to see likes from people that throw hate at you, or do you want to see dollars from people that support you and encourage your journey?
I love the idea of, if you want to like me, give me a token, give me a drop, give me a coin.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we already discussed this, but this is, I think, the next wave of decentralization. We have 50 million self-proclaimed content creators. There's tens of millions of videos being uploaded every day. We're seeing a decentralization of content that we've never seen in the history of this planet. It's a very historic moment. It's beautiful. The next wave is decentralization of platforms and IP. that creators, whether it's, work with the patrons or all the other services that are out there. But I think, technology is advancing, and there's going to be a lot of, great things where creators can truly have control, because they have more control now than ever in the history of this planet. It's a very marginalized, abused trade. YouTube made this new wave of decentralization of content, and now we're going to see more and more of it because we're so hungry for it that it's just going to get better. And creators want to be able to control their own destiny.
We see, so at the Glo Project, we work with creators that primarily use subscription platforms to drive their income. And my background is all in creators that have millions and millions of followers and creating audiences that will have premium experience with them, be that led by a brand or publishing or licensing or whatever else. But creators on the Glo Project who are around the 30, 50, 100,000 Instagram followers, that level of following on Instagram will be very hard to earn a living from. But on subscription, they're earning more than, I'd say, 99% of people on Instagram that would have that level of following, and it completely supports their career in a completely controlled, safe, censorship-free environment that's totally sustainable.
So the role for creators now, if they want to get into that, is having their unique IPs.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're thinking of getting into that world and want to do it, you've got a really strong voice.
Yeah,
unique
you've got to have
voice.
a purpose. And going back
Purpose,
to
yeah,
another one of these
yeah.
things.
All right, it's great to do this with an audience because we have a lot of really smart people in the room too. Does anybody want to either ask a question or, even better, come up with a trend in 2022 that they think they're going to see really develop? Anybody want to raise their hand? All right, sure, go ahead.
Hey guys, thank you for your time today. Super insightful. One of the things that I've just seen so much of, and creators as well, is the creator funds, right? And really monetization from the platforms for creators. The sustainability of kind of throwing money at the creators. I'd love to pick your brain at how do platforms continue to support creators, specifically with making money in monetization?
Who wants to take that on? Go ahead.
So I'm seeing it quite a lot in terms of testing new things. We've seen Facebook in the last few weeks offering money to artists and creators to test their new audio platform in a way to take down Clubhouse before it even begins. And TikTok as well are also doing that to some great gains as well in terms of how charging brands to create missions, which basically means TikTok creators can add the hashtag onto their content, and then they get paid to do that. So I think it's a great way of them testing new ways of monetizing things on the platform as well.
Yeah, just building off that. I mean, I think, Twitter, as you observed, we recently started a Spark Fund for our spaces, and we're actually about to announce our selection of these kind of basic creators that we want to help support. And I think it's really it's about incubating that ecosystem and hopefully starting a flywheel where it, to Donnie's point, that these creators can start making somewhat a living independent. And of course, yes, we've seen Facebook do it. Snap is very famous. He's paying like a creator $1 million a day. It's sort of sustainable. They didn't away from that after 6 months. But yeah, I certainly think the platforms do have a responsibility to try and incubate it and give creators a reason to come and embrace these products and see that ecosystem. So,
Yeah, $700 billion a year is being spent on media. Only a small fraction of that is being spent on creators. And where this is interesting is in the US, Netflix is bigger than the top several. 3 to 5 cable networks combined, and it's not ad supported. But then you look at YouTube, 82% of the views are digital creators, which is way bigger than Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, Hulu, and all of TV combined is a small fraction of that. It's the biggest form of media that exists, and it's getting a fraction of the media spend. And there's a huge increase when it comes to Facebook and Google, where there's advertising dollars that are truly climbing. However, there's not enough priority of doing much more aggressive and established compensation plans and rev shares with creators. If I was ByteDance and I had the momentum that they have right now, I would make it a top priority to kick YouTube's ass when it comes to rev share.
Yep.
Because YouTube would then have a true threat. Right now, YouTube's ahead of everyone because everyone can monetize with YouTube. Facebook, ByteDance, Twitter's awesome. So you guys are doing a great job. But everyone is not making a big enough priority, and there's going to be a new one that's going to rise, and they're going to come out and say, we are going to pay creators the most. They're going to get creators, whether it's through a subscription or it's another type of rev share model, they're going to give them a much bigger chunk, and they're going to come and wipe the floor.
I think the biggest threat to those enormous AVOD platforms is the fact that the quality of the content is probably going down, because the amount of creators on the platform is going up. And if you're sharing revenue with everybody as well, then the amount of money, the CPM or whatever you want to call it, is probably having downward pressure applied to it. So it's not going to encourage the people that really want to create amazing content on the platform to go there. And we think we've got to fix that.
The quality of content will also go down if subscriber models keep going, because you wouldn't want to put the stuff that's gold on something that isn't subscriber based.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the challenge and the exciting thing about subscription, and it's a challenge for AVOD as well, is that you've got to invest in quality. And for the creators on subscription, it's the same for them. They've got to raise the bar of quality on subscription platforms so that it does compete with Netflix, certainly on the kind of user subscription platforms. But on AVOD, they've got to make better content for all.
So here's my problem with funds, and I'm going to be a little bit contrary here. I think we will see more funds, to your point, these creator funds. My problem is they do not align incentives between what creators are making and what the platform is delivering. And so they end up being just a sop to everybody's public interest. But when the money goes away, the content goes away. This happened to Snap. They put a ton of money out there. People made a lot of content on Snap. And it went from $1 million a day to $1 million a week to, I don't know, maybe $1 here and there with the lottery. And everybody went somewhere else. The only way to do it, and this is where I think YouTube owns this, is in signing incentives around if you get advertising, if you get subscriptions, if you get tips, etc. You get it as a creator. And I agree with you, Ricky, that TikTok could step up and should step up. Unfortunately, I wish the funds would go away, despite the fact that they are funding creators, and that we figured out a way to align incentives between creators, the platforms, and their audiences, which is also why I'm very bullish on Web3, because tokenized communities have the promise to do that. We have a question right here.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, guys, every session. I have two questions. One is, you spoke of all the trends. How do you see UGC coming up in 2022? Everybody's talking about storytelling. And there's creative content and there is UGC. Is there a clear distinction, or can it exist hand in hand for the brands?
Yeah, I think
It's all creative.
Yeah, it's a really good question, but I agree with you, Ricky. It's all creators. UGC is an outmoded term, which definitely is needed for people that just don't understand and are still putting money on television and traditional media. They have to understand that there is all this other stuff over there. But we're all creators. And I know I'm moderating, but I'm just going to say, we're all creators in the end. And when you look at community first content, whether it's UGC, community first content, creator economy, whatever, to me, it's all about people doing it without gatekeepers. Who else wants to comment?
I fully agree. I mean, we redefined who our client base of customers are. It used to be, it still is. I mean, these gargantuan, century-old media brands, but increasingly, so that's why we call it professional content creators. And I feel like UGC does a disservice to a lot of these creators who, frankly, are really just pushing the envelope and innovating in terms of what they can do in what speed of turnaround, the quality of the content, and the engagement, and all that. So, seriously.
Yeah, I think UGC is already mainstream. It's going to stay relevant. I think TikTok is, one of the most successful platforms to make it so everyone can have a voice pretty quickly. I have 60 followers. I average 1,500 views a video. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't get a lot of followers from those videos, but I get over 1,000 views there. And so, as an individual contributor of UGC content, I feel like I'm being heard and listened to. And so I think it's going to continue to happen, and there's going to be new algorithms that are created that make it so not just the creators continue to create and grow, but that their followers also have a voice with video content.
I'm going to come at it slightly differently in terms of how brands can use UGC content as well, because there's different ways of using UGC. So IKEA do it brilliantly. They take UGC content and they add it onto the website so you can see the products in real life, but actually the actual products that they want to sell, they'll stylize it in a really interesting way. So I think for brands, there's a really great way of being able to use UGC, but it's not one size fits all. So food products, for example, you wouldn't want to just use any old picture that someone's created. where you want to stylize it in a certain way and you want to have it set. So I think it's thinking about the role of UGC within the whole sphere.
Don, anything to say on this, UGC?
Yeah, I think the future UGC and creator, etc., has got to pay homage to the fact that we've got to make sure that the brands don't become those gatekeepers. I think it is all about content without gatekeepers. And I think it's a responsibility of guys like you to keep wrangling the brands so that they don't take over with their scripts and censorship and having to control it too much, because that's the magic of all this debate. All of this industry is there, no gatekeepers there.
Yeah, and I will say that question comes from one of the senior team at Juke Media, who's done a lot with it, and my buddy Ravi, who's also here, is running MENA and running Asia for Juke, and he's definitely schooled me on the whole, like, yeah, in the US we all sort of know that it's an old term, and it's sort of some of the more developed creator economy regions, but wide swaths of the world, swatches of the world, whatever, really just aren't as far along in UGC as a useful determinant about content that's not created by big media companies with brands. So as a term, I'm not sure I like it, but as a concept, I do. And by the way, the video that they rolled yesterday in their session was beautiful and made me cry. And if that's user-generated content, I say give me more of it.
Right, I agree. Back to like brands and gatekeepers, I think brands are starting to become much more data-driven in this new creator economy. Because you're right, there was a large period of time where brands, when they collaborated with creators, whether small or large, they try to dictate what needs to happen. And guess what? Most of those campaigns failed. Most of those campaigns weren't as successful as they should be because they weren't looking at the data, and instead of empowering the content and being consistent with the program with the creator, they were distracting it, and there was a lot of blowback. And I think now that we have this blue ocean of content creators out there, we own the biggest company in the world as influencer marketing and product placement. But what we've noticed is that we're just barely penetrating a really small percentage of what's out there, and as brands want to get in front of true eyeballs, when there's 90% of the globe skipping ads or 50% of the globe using ad blockers, they are going to have to figure out how to scale, being in UGC, being in content creators' content, being a part of the storyline in an authentic, empowering way rather than a distracting advertising one.
Blows my mind that we still get requests to put TV ads on social. It drives me crazy. Like, how do you take this TV ad and put it onto platform? No, you cannot. You've got to really think about the platforms, but even from a creative perspective, make content for the platform that you want.
And not for the brand. I think that some creators are embarking on a creator career to get a brand deal, and therefore they become a mouthpiece of the brand. They're shaping their content to get a Boohoo deal or a I Saw It First deal, and that's not what the creator economy should be about. It's see-through.
All right, real quickly, I have one more question for these guys, and actually some housekeeping. After this, I encourage you all to go down to the community stage because YouTube's going to be doing an amazing presentation about what they think the world looks like next year. It's really interesting stuff there, so I would go there immediately after this. Second thing is 5 to 7 tonight is our cocktail party at the A-Loft with all these guys will be here hopefully from 5 to 7, and we'll be hanging out having a drink on the 5th floor, I believe, for Jelly Snack, who's actually doing some of this platform intentional stuff for creators. Super interesting. With that said, in the minute 33 we have left, and I'm going to start with you, Dom, and then go down and end with Ricky. What do you think about the frickin' metaverse in 2022? Take it away, Dom.
I think it's a word that we need to understand exactly what it is before we get into it, but it will definitely be a place we all want to exist in the future.
100%. We don't fully know what it's going to be or what it is, but there are certain brands that have already started going into it. So we saw Gucci do a Gucci Garden in Roblox. But the thing is, the really important thing, and I keep banging on about it, is authenticity and USP. Gucci Garden works in Roblox because you know what you're getting when you go there, so people know to go and find it.
What I expect is, and hope, is that it's going to be completely centralized, and the true innovation is going to come from a company we haven't heard of yet versus the ones that are popular.
I agree with you on that. I think it's a cute term. I think it's full of hype. Let's see what happens. If someone says they come contact you and say they are the expert in the metaverse, hide your freaking wallet.
All right, well, that is all the time we have for Inside the Creator Economy. Please thank my contestants, panelists, whatever you want to call them, Ricky, Katy, Dominic, and Rahul. Thank you guys for playing along. We'll be posting this in a little bit. Thank you all for being here. Let's go see what YouTube has to say, all right? See you guys later.